Is everything off? I think it is. Okay. Hi everybody and welcome back. We have today a patron suggestion. Poles didn't only invade my YouTube channel but also my Patreon page. So we have another topic regarding Poland today. And it's the Battle of Warsaw 1920 from IPNTV. The original link is going to be in the description below as always. I'm going to give my thoughts, opinions, additional information. If you know something, if you want to add something, please let me know in the comment section below. If you want to be a patron, the link is also going to be in the description below. If you just want to join the community, hit the subscribe button and the notification bell. Okay, 1920, Pilsudski. Let's see what I got here.
It's the beginning of July 1920. Poland has just regained its independence after 123 years of partitions. The Bolshevik War has been going on for over 10 months. Lieutenant, Bolsheviks on our left flank. Our infantry is retreating. Shchelchik, take a scout with you and look around. If you see large Bolshevik forces, shoot off a red flare. Yes, sir. Lieutenant! Retreat immediately! On the 5th of July 1920,
like
Marshal of Poland, Józef Pilsudski, orders the retreat of Polish troops across the entire front.
Okay, a little bit of context here. So, during the First World War, before it ended, we all know about the revolution in Russia, so the Bolsheviks come to power, and some of the states that were part of Imperial Russia back then, they separate from Russia. So you had Finland, let's say, and Poland also. Poland gained its independence, but states like, let's say today, Belarus or Ukraine didn't. And the Poles wanted, to establish a commonwealth again, like the Polish-Lithuania that was back then. Kinda, I think, something like that, an alliance with the Ukrainians, Belarusians, and so on. And they pushed eastwards as Russia was, fighting its internal fight with, the Red Army and the White Armies clashing and so on. But as the situation stabilized in Russia and the Bolsheviks took power, they wanted to gain back power in Poland. So they pushed Poland back until Warsaw, but at the Battle of Warsaw, the Poles won and they pushed back, and then they decided to make a stalemate somewhere around the old border that was prior to the Polish-Soviet War. So yeah, let's see. But it looks cool, like a comic.
So, the Bolsheviks have broken the front. Is the situation really that bad? I'm afraid it is. Our army is tired, and the Bolsheviks have thrown all their forces at us. We're retreating all along the front line. They are driven not only by the thirst for plunder, but also the hunger in their army. The Czechoslovak troops prevent desertion by shooting any withdrawing soldiers. Gentlemen, this madman Lenin wants to flood Europe with blood. Poland is the first on his way. When will they reach Warsaw? Sooner than we think, I'm afraid. They cover at least a dozen or so kilometers a day.
Yeah, the question is, if the Poles didn't stop the Soviets into advance into Poland, which would be the next country? Probably, I don't know, the Czech lands, the Slovak lands, maybe Hungary and so on. So a lot of Poles always say when they refer to the Polish-Soviet War of 1920, they refer it to "we stop Bolshevism from entering Europe."
We have very little time then. Over a dozen days or so at most. We should inform the inhabitants so that they can prepare for the worst. Warsaw, Archbishop Alexander Kakowski's palace, 10th of July 1920.
Don't know about him.
Father Skorupka. Unfortunately, I cannot agree. But why, Your Eminence? Shouldn't we, priests, be the role models in such a difficult time for our homeland? Be with the soldiers. Keep their spirits high.
Yeah, Poland is a deep religious
set an
nation,
example
Roman
and
Catholic.
be ready to fight in the front line? In the front line? That's ridiculous. No! Priests should serve behind the lines, comforting the wounded and those who have lost hope. Hear their confessions. That's where they are needed the most. Please listen. I've already got 40 applicants for chaplain service. I can't transfer everyone. After all, there are others in need of pastoral service and care. The poor, the young, the orphans you are looking after. But, fine, I'll think about it.
Let me try. Ale, dobrze. Zastanowię się jeszcze.
The first volunteers set off to the front lines as early as mid-July. They came from all over Poland, from Poznan, Upper Silesia, Łódź, Radom, Kielce. It was about time to strengthen the forces of the Polish
But they
troops
were all new
and to allow
recruits.
some time for Warsaw to prepare its defenses. Look, it's Father Skorupka. Have they appointed you, Father, as a chaplain? Yes, the bishops finally agreed. What's new? Is everything okay? We've been here for over a week, and they still haven't given us rifles. Yes, I know. I've talked to your commander. Your guns should be here in 2 or 3 days. Where are the Bolsheviks now? Is it true that they've captured Białystok? I'm afraid so. And that means, boys, that we will soon be sent off to the field. We'll only have a couple of days to learn how to shoot. Father Ignacy, but will we win against the Bolsheviks, since our brave soldiers failed to overcome them? Don't worry. God and Our Lady of Częstochowa will not forsake us, and we'll be victorious. That day is near. 15th of August won't even pass, and the enemy will be beaten. A plan to wage war against the Bolsheviks was developed by Polish commanders. One thing was certain: surrendering was not an option. On the 6th of August 1920, Marshal Pilsudski left Warsaw, which was immediately noticed by Bolshevik spies. The departure was, in fact, part of General Rozwadowski's plan. Pilsudski went southeast, over 150 kilometers from Warsaw, near the Wieprz River.
Okay.
Within 10 days, Pilsudski was to gather as many Polish troops as possible. When the Bolsheviks reached the capital, he would flank them from the southeast. The plan was risky because it assumed that Warsaw would still be standing strong by the 16th of August, when Pilsudski was to counterattack.
Yeah, but the...
King Władysław IV Junior High, at 5 o'clock on the morning of the 14th...
I'm still interested. And I didn't receive much additional information about that in the last video. So if you know, like when the Soviets or the Bolsheviks pushed into Poland and into like Warsaw, or in front of Warsaw, what was the position of the Belarusians and Ukrainians? Did they still support the Polish and fought, I don't know, like a guerrilla warfare attacking the supply lines of the Russians? Or did they then align with the Russians? I mean, not when the Poles were winning, but when they started to, like, it looked like they're going to lose.
Of August,
let me know.
Volunteers from the 236th Infantry Regiment were ordered to march to Radzymin. Boys, we're leaving! This'll be our first fight. News of the young volunteers' departure quickly reached their families and loved ones, and despite the early hour, they were given a tearful goodbye. On the night before the departure, Father Skorupko wrote down his will. It disturbed him greatly that he was leaving behind the children from the orphanage, and that he was indebted. He wrote that he would like to pay his debts back by sacrificing his own life. The next day, he asked the commander for the opportunity to fight in the front lines. The volunteers arrived at the front line at around 6 a.m. They were ordered to take the village of Ossów, situated along the road.
Okay.
The open plains terrified them. The battle has begun. For many volunteers, it was the first contact with weapons. Even loading a rifle during the attack proved difficult for many of them. The losses were enormous. The soldiers were retreating in panic. The officers tried to prevent them from fleeing by leading at the forefront.
And you, sorry to interrupt, but you need to take into account that during the First World War and after the First World War, the machine guns were pretty commonly used as a new weapon where you could just mow down enemies. After the First World War, there were a lot of, like frontal attacks that from the First World War. So the casualties were probably pretty high. And especially because they were new recruits, as they said, they didn't know even how to reload a musket, or a rifle. So...
of the strike,
Damn.
And yet the young soldiers were overwhelmed with fear. To Father Skorupka, it was clear how much depended on the faith in victory. On Onward, boys! Beloved mother, guardian of the nation, hear orphans weeping in their supplication. Lieutenant Poganovsky's unit set off immediately and arrived at the designated positions just before midnight. Listen, boys, the main Bolshevik forces are ahead of us. Are you ready to die for your homeland? Lead us, Lieutenant! The Poles set off on the 15th of August at night. They hit directly at the point from which the main Bolshevik attack was to come from at dawn.
Regarding the priest in the army, it was pretty common back then, and also during the Second World War. The Poles are a religious nation, and people in general were pretty religious back then. So as maybe you can remember from the Napoleonic Wars that we talked about, when Napoleon invaded Russia, the Russian army at Krasny and Smolensk, they were also praying, and they were, praying to the icons, but they're Orthodox Christians, but they prayed also before battle, and so it was a common thing. Maybe we look at it in a weird way from today's perspective, but it was a common thing.
The morning of the 15th of August 1920 came. The celebration of the Assumption of the Holy Virgin Mary, the largest Marian holiday for the Catholics. Another day of bloody battle. Polish defensive troops hit the entire line on the outskirts of Warsaw. Have you sent the telegram to Pilsudski? Yes, sir. Sir, a telegram from General Rozwadowski. He's asking for the acceleration of the counterattack. Soldiers, follow me! Beat the Bolshevik! On the evening of the 15th of August, Poles recaptured Radzymin. However, the headquarters of General Zheligowski received only vague information, so Colonel Thome went there personally. It can't be! Our advance has stopped! Take a look. These are the field kitchens of the cannon riflemen, and in them, beer! What? What's going on here? I'm reporting, Colonel, that we've captured the main strategic point in Radzymin.
What? They captured beer?
We are now taking the beer to our boys in the trenches. Colonel Thome understood that the battle for Radzymin had been won, even if there were still some Bolsheviks in the city. He saw that the ease, joy, and conviction of victory had been revived. Marshal soldiers covered 150 kilometers in a day and reached the rear of the Bolshevik army on the 17th of August. Meanwhile, the battle continued on the outskirts of Warsaw, where the Bolsheviks were pushed far from the first line of the trenches. They say that the Blessed Virgin Mary had been watching over Polish soldiers. After all, the 15th of August is her holiday. It was to her that the Polish soldiers and their commanders prayed for salvation.
And you need to take into account that every time the defending army, if they're on their home turf, they have a plus in defense, plus 2 points in defense, because, they're highly motivated to defend their homes, their neighbors, whatever. And especially if you take into account Poland, it was separated. Throughout history, it lost its independence with the separations of the 1790s. So they lost their independence. They gained it a little bit in the Napoleonic Wars, but eventually they were almost 200 years, separated between the three superpowers, Prussia, Austria, and Russia. And then you get your independence, and then the Russians come again. So those people were highly motivated to defend their place, and that's probably the way they won. But I'm kind of interested also, how did Lenin... it's just a few years after they signed the peace treaty in the First World War, where a lot of people in Russia were against the First World War. They wanted Russia to go out of the Second World War. How he convinced the new government and people to go into war again, I don't know.
Victory over the ungodly hordes is her merit. Others believe that if it were not for the sacrifice of the soldiers, there would be no victory, or that the fate of the battle was determined by the heroic deeds of Father Skorupka and Lieutenant Poganovsky, or that it was due to the weapons brought from France and ammunition delivered from Hungary, or General Rozwadowski's excellent plan, General Haller's information campaign, and Marshal Pilsudski's flawless sense of the moment for the counterattack. Father Ignacy Skorupka's body was transported to the field cathedral of the Polish army in Warsaw. During the solemn funeral mass, General Józef Haller decorated the heroic priest with the Silver Cross of the Virtuti Militari Order. In 1930, a committee was assembled in the capital to build his monument, which was to be erected next to the building of Władysław IV Junior High School, from where in August 1920 he set off with his pupils to the front. However, in November 1945, the communist authorities placed a monument to the Brotherhood of Arms with the Red Army on the prepared pedestal. For many years, the monument remained a symbol of the enslavement of Poland and Warsaw by Soviet Russia.
Okay. I have a question. I know about Pilsudski, of course. He's a big figure for that time period of Polish history. But what's with Skorupka, the priest? Is he also widely known in Poland and regarded, because of his importance or involvement in the war? Or is he just a side figure? Let me know if you're from Poland. Do you learn about him in school? Does he have monuments, streets around Poland, and so on?
The Battle of Warsaw stopped the Bolshevik expansion in Europe for another 21 years. It has been recognized as one of the decisive battles of the world.
Instytut Pamięci Narodowej. Okay, bardzo dobrze. Okay, as I said, I know just a little bit Polish. Okay, I hope that you enjoyed it. Once again, the Patreon account is down in the description below. The original link to the video is down below. If you want to add something, correct something, just let me know in the comment section below. Until the next time, see ya.